Welcome to the Lost in History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Window cleaners work on the Empire State Building during the 1930s. The record shows the maintenance routine on one of the tallest buildings in the world at the time. A device from the 1940s called slenderizing promised to reduce measurements in the hips, buttocks, and thighs. These devices were promoted as aids to achieve quick results. Aerial performer Betty Fox appeared in 1945 in the state of Michigan, carrying out a daring act from the roof of the Fort Shelby Hotel. Known for challenging heights without the use of safety nets, she drew crowds to watch her acrobatic feats on buildings and urban structures. A West Berlin police officer stands guard while East German soldiers work on building a barrier in 1961. The structure was erected as part of the political measures of the time. In 1937 in Germany, a photograph recorded 30 men standing on the roof of an Auto Union DKW F7 automobile. The scene was arranged to demonstrate the strength of the vehicle's body, which was built from wood with metal cladding. An improvised camp known as a Hooverville was erected in the middle of Central Park in New York City in 1933 during the Great Depression. These precarious dwellings were built with wood, cardboard, and scrap metal by people who had lost their homes and jobs after the 1929 economic crisis. A British soldier and a Canadian sailor appear together in January 1941. The scene symbolizes international cooperation of that period. Such meetings were common in places of joint operations. The cooling towers of the John Amos Power Plant rise over a house across the Kanawha River near Polka, West Virginia, in August 1973. The British airship R-33 appears in its hangar as it prepares for its first flight at an airfield in Barlow, Yorkshire, in 1919. The R-33 was designed based on earlier airship models. The city of Miami recorded snow for the first and only time in 1977. The phenomenon occurred in January of that year. The episode drew attention for being unusual in a tropical climate region. At Christmas 1942, during the Kokoda campaign of the Second World War, a local resident of Papua New Guinea, known as a Fuzzy Wuzzy Angel, was photographed guiding a wounded Australian soldier back to safety. Philippa Petit crossed the Twin Towers on a steel cable in August 1974. The feat took place shortly after the completion of the towers in New York City. A Finnish soldier named Aimo Koivunen became separated from his military unit in 1944 during the Second World War and survived for several weeks inside the Arctic Circle without access to food or shelter. The restaurant Windows on the World, located at the top of the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City, was recorded in a 1976 photograph. Opened that year, it quickly became one of the most prestigious restaurants in the world. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant appears with Unit 4 in operation between 1983 and 1986. The facility was one of the most important in the energy sector in the region. At Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, a scene recorded in 1968 shows staff and station managers pushing passengers into the cars during rush hour. Known as oshiya, or pushers, these workers ensured that the greatest number of people could board the crowded trains. A portable radio built into a straw hat was created by an American inventor in 1931. The invention represented the pursuit of practicality and innovation. This kind of experiment reflected the enthusiasm for electronic devices of the time. A line to buy sausages is recorded in the Soviet Union during the 1980s. Long lines were common in many cities in that period. Sausages were part of the popular diet and were in high demand. The O'Halloran sisters appeared during an episode of the Land War in Ireland. The scene symbolizes the struggle of rural communities to remain on their lands. This movement involved protests against property practices of the period. A businessman and a secretary work inside a swimming pool during a heat wave in Berlin, Germany in 1926. Berlin already stood out as an important urban and cultural center of Europe. President Richard Nixon visits American troops in South Vietnam on July 30, 1969. The visit was part of commitments connected to international policy. The largest airplane in the world, the Antonov AN-225 Maria, was photographed in June 1989 at Kubinka Airfield in the then Soviet Union, carrying the Buran space shuttle on its back. Pilot Nancy Nesbitt, a member of the Women Air Force Service Pilots program, is seen seated in the cockpit of an AT-6 Texan training aircraft at Love Field, Dallas, in 1944. Franklin Roosevelt speaks with Harry Hopkins and Vyacheslav Molotov in Yalta. The meeting was part of negotiations among different countries. Yalta became known as a setting for important political meetings. On August 28, 1963, actor Paul Newman was present in Washington, United States, during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The main event was the historic "I Have a Dream" speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. before hundreds of thousands of people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. Charles de Gaulle inspects sailors of the Free French Navy in the United Kingdom in 1941. Free France organized forces to maintain resistance outside French territory. The meeting symbolized cooperation and institutional continuity. The last photograph of John Belushi was taken in 1982, shortly before his death in Los Angeles, California. Known for his work on the program Saturday Night Live and for films such as The Blues Brothers and Animal House, he was one of the most popular figures in American comedy in the late 1970s and early 1980s. A crowd in Chicago, United States, celebrated when a truck loaded with beer left a local brewery in April 1933. The episode occurred shortly after Congress approved the law that allowed the sale of beverages with up to 3.2% alcohol, an important step toward the end of Prohibition. Mao Zedong meets George H.W. Bush, future President of the United States, in 1975. The record also shows Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in the background. In August 1945, Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek made a toast to the surrender of Japan, marking the end of the Second World War in Asia. The meeting took place in Chongqing, China, during negotiations to form a coalition government between nationalists and communists. The only walk-off home run in a Game 7 of the World Series belonged to Bill Mazeroski of the Pittsburgh Pirates. The feat occurred in October 1960. The play secured his team's victory over the New York Yankees. Bill Russell is remembered as one of the greatest defensive basketball players. He won 11 championships and received 5 Most Valuable Player awards. Russell stood out for his ability to block shots and dominate rebounds. Charlie Chaplin is photographed beside Winston Churchill on the set of the film City Lights in the United States in 1929. The film was in production and would become one of his best-known works. Marilyn Monroe stands in line to buy a hot dog in New York City in 1957. The scene highlights everyday simplicity, even for a major star. Actress Sophia Loren appears next to a Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing automobile. The model was recognized for its gull-wing doors. The vehicle became a symbol of innovation and elegance in the automobile industry. On May 18, 1980, Richard Lasher recorded the eruption of Mount St. Helens. The photographer had to abandon his car and continue escaping on a motorcycle. The event released a large amount of ash across the region. The band Metallica is recorded around 1983. This period marked the group's first releases and performances. The band's sound was beginning to gain recognition in the music scene. Farrah Fawcett and Jaclyn Smith appear in the series Charlie's Angels in 1976. The series quickly became an international hit. The show marked the pop culture of the 1970s. A worker stands before a full-weight, full-size model of the first Soviet atomic bomb in the Soviet Union in 1949. The model allowed technical study without the use of active components. Dolly Parton is recorded during the 1960s. This period marked the beginning of her rise in country music. Over the following years, she became one of the best-known voices in the genre. Linda Carter appeared as the heroine Wonder Woman in Episode 4 of the second season of the television series Wonder Woman. The program, originally aired in the United States, established the character as a pop culture icon of the 1970s and highlighted Carter as a memorable performer in the role. In London, Carrie Fisher was recorded beside actors dressed as stormtroopers during the promotion of the film The Empire Strikes Back. The actress, who played Princess Leia in the Star Wars saga, took part in several events and public appearances to promote the second part of the original trilogy. Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall, David Lee Roth, and Sonia Braga appeared together in 1984. The scene reflects the vibrant cultural atmosphere of that decade. Gatherings of artists from different fields were common at social occasions. In 1961 in California, the Electronics Laboratory at Hughes Aircraft presented the Mobot, short for Mobile Robot, a robotic prototype developed to perform delicate tasks at a distance. The control room of the German submarine SMUB-110 is recorded in 1918. The record shows the equipment and instruments used for navigation. The vessel was part of the naval fleet of the period. The Mercury Express train of the New York Central Railroad passes in front of Syracuse City Hall in 1936. The locomotive was part of an effort to modernize rail transportation. Computers appear in a parade in East Germany in 1987. The event highlighted the development of computing in the region. Such presentations were used to show industrial and scientific advances. In 1956, the magazine British Vogue produced a photo shoot on Dal Lake, located in the Kashmir region in northern India. The setting brought together models in traditional boats called shikaras, sailing among calm waters with mountains in the background. Slot machines appear at the Mint Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada in 1958. The machines were one of the main attractions for visitors. The Mint Casino was part of the city's expansion as a tourist destination. Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills is recorded in 1925. The buildings and bustle reflected the region's growth. Beverly Hills was already beginning to stand out as a prestigious area in California. A photograph shows the Dynamo Stadium in Tbilisi, captured by Guram Rikulishvili. The venue was one of the main sports centers in Georgia. The stadium drew large crowds for events and competitions. Its architecture reflected the monumental style characteristic of the time. The German embassy in Moscow is recorded in 1940. The building was one of the city's diplomatic sites. The location served for meetings and official activities between countries. Moscow was already established as an important international political center. A 1936 project proposed making the second level of the Eiffel Tower accessible by automobile. The proposal was part of modernization studies of the time. The Eiffel Tower was already considered one of the greatest symbols of Paris. A chess class takes place at a school in the city of Pskov in the Soviet Union in 1975. Chess was encouraged as part of educational development. Engineer Karen Leadley works on the analog computers of General Dynamics Space Division in 1964. Analog computers were essential for calculations and simulations. Harry Nilsson and John Lennon are seen leaving the Troubadour Club in West Hollywood, California on March 12, 1974. The Troubadour was a well-known venue that hosted famous artists. Jesse Owens is seen filling up a car at a gas station in the United States in 1935. Jesse Owens is seen filling up a car at a gas station in the United States in 1935. A typical American family appears in Detroit, Michigan during the 1950s. The record shows aspects of domestic life of the era. Families were often portrayed in settings that emphasized prosperity and togetherness. The city of San Francisco is recorded during the 1950s. The streets and buildings reflected the economic expansion of the era. San Francisco was already recognized for its cultural and architectural diversity. The Barton Fair took place in Vermont in 1965. Such occasions were important to the community life of the region. The scene remains remembered as part of Vermont's cultural history in the 20th century. An Australian dining hall is recorded in 1962. These spaces were part of daily life in schools, factories, and communities. The dining hall served affordable and practical meals to its patrons. Members of an honor guard warm up in Russia during the 1990s. The record shows the preparation before an official ceremony. Honor guards were traditionally formed for receptions and notable events. Buckingham Palace in London is recorded in 1900. The palace already served as the official residence of the British monarchy. Its architecture symbolized tradition and institutional power. Jane Mansfield appears elegantly playing the piano while wearing white gloves. The scene highlights Mansfield's connection with different cultural expressions. The piano was often used in social performances of the time. A canal in Venice is recorded in 1897. The canals were already the main means of transportation in the city. The scenery reflected the architectural style characteristic of Venice. The composing room of the New York Times appears in 1942. The process involved manual typesetting techniques. This work was essential to the newspaper's daily production. Richard Nixon is seen bowling at the White House Lane in 1971. In one of the shots, he commits a foul known as a foot fault. The bowling alley was part of the leisure areas of the official residence. Women are seen shopping at a market during the 1960s. The record shows everyday life related to household supplies. The shelves displayed products that reflected the consumer habits of the time. A young Beatles fan appears in her room in 1964. Decorative objects and records were part of the environment of the group's followers. A driver removes a picnic basket from a Rolls-Royce while admiring the New York City skyline in 1952. The record shows the union of leisure and automotive sophistication. The scene highlights the contrast between the luxury vehicle and the urban view. Summer residences were common among families of the region. This custom was tied to making the most of the warmer months. The scene remains remembered as part of 19th century social life. Members of indigenous communities present a ceremonial salmon to a train engineer in Oregon, United States, in 1940. The meeting united ancestral practices with a moment of modern life. Students in Pleasanton, Texas, worked together on a project in 1957. Earlier that year, the local community had voted in favor of integrating the public schools. A man poses with a loaf of bread in front of a poster that read, "The meaning of the policy of the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, the well-being of the people." The scene shows how official messages were displayed in public spaces. A vending machine for women's stockings appears on the streets of Stockholm in 1951. The machines offered convenience and quick access to products. This kind of innovation was part of the urban changes of the period. The photograph shows Christmas activities held in the Congo around the 1960s. The main event is the Christmas celebration in local communities, marked by religious gatherings, cultural performances, and moments of fellowship. In 1936, a machine was built to produce small cavities called dimples, generally used to create textures on metal surfaces. The main event linked to this object was the advance of industrial technology aimed at standardizing parts and equipment. In the United States, in late 1987, Joseph Biden announced his withdrawal from the 1988 presidential race. The main event was the official end of his candidacy during the Democratic Party primaries. In Japan in 1954, during the filming of the first Godzilla movie, the actor who played the monster appears without the mask of the suit, taking a break and drinking tea between scenes. The main event portrayed is a behind-the-scenes moment of the film production. In 1904, a dinner was held at the Astor Hotel in New York City, United States. The main event portrays a high society social gathering of the era, marked by luxury and formality. In 1938, magazines and social guides published advice aimed at single women seeking a relationship. The so-called dating tips reflected the customs of the time, suggesting how to behave on dates, what clothes to wear, and even how to converse in a way considered proper. Mao Zedong was recorded in 1961, preparing to swim at his resort in Lushan, China. The Chinese leader often swam for leisure and also as a show of vitality amid a period of political tension after the Great Leap Forward. The 5 children of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia were photographed in January 1917 with shaved heads after suffering a measles outbreak at the Alexander Palace in Tsarskoye Selo. At 20 years of age, in 1965, Helen Mirren was recorded dressed as Cleopatra for a stage production in the United Kingdom. The young actress would later become one of the most recognized performers in British cinema and theater. The dining room of the Hindenburg airship was designed in the 1920s when Germany was developing large aircraft for luxury passenger transport. The space was broad, elegantly decorated, and could accommodate dozens of travelers during transatlantic crossings. Arnold Schwarzenegger took part in 1976 in ballet and posing classes taught by dancer Marianne Claire in the United States. The goal was to improve his posture, balance, and elegance on stage during bodybuilding competitions. The majestic building of Penn Station in New York City received thousands of passengers daily between 1910 and 1963. considered one of the largest railroad stations in the world at its opening. The structure impressed with marble columns, high glass ceilings, and vast halls that recalled classical temples. In the mid-1940s, shortly after the liberation of Paris during the Second World War, cafe waitresses were photographed serving portions of French fries to customers who were celebrating the end of the German occupation. Hatmakers work on their new creations in Estonia in 1972. These pieces were an important part of fashion and clothing at the time. The craft combined tradition and hand skills passed down through generations. Winners of a car race in Moscow received tires as a prize in 1982. Races were part of the recreational and competitive activities of the time. The tires were considered a useful award for the participants. An event held in 1934 brought together participants dressed as Romans. The record shows the recreation of outfits inspired by antiquity. The occasion was organized as part of a themed celebration. Robert Paul Hu received a 60-day sentence in 1949. The case was recorded as part of the common legal procedures of that period. Situations like this reflected the strictness of the laws enforced at the time. Residential buildings in East Germany appear in 1975 with a poster displaying leader Erich Honecker. These constructions were common in urban areas and housed thousands of residents. Time magazine released a cover issue in 1978. The cover reflected major international and cultural themes of the era. The magazine was already considered one of the most influential in the world.